Hello and welcome to the Pages to Pixels podcast, where we talk about new movies every week. I'm Rohan, and this is not whodunnit.
What gave it away?
I'm going to let the audience answer that question.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm Pages to Pixels, producer, often director, editor. Am happy to be a guest on video for the first time.
Yeah, you've been here before, just not on video.
Yeah, so it feels very different.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell everyone what we're talking about today?
Well, today we are talking about my favorite movie of all time, Rear Window, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. The IMDb logline for Rear Window is a house and wheelchair-bound photographer and his fashion model girlfriend and his visiting nurse spy on neighbors from his courtyard window. And despite skepticisms by his PD detective friend, they're convinced that one of his neighbors is in fact a murderer. So we both have seen this film multiple times. You said you've seen it a couple times?
I think I've seen it twice.
Yeah. I've seen it definitely over 5 or 6 times.
Damn.
Not my most watched movie ever. I think that would go to Scream, since I think I saw that when I was 8. And I watch it every year for Halloween. I remember seeing it a long time ago when I was a kid, and then when I went to school at University of North Carolina, Greensboro, I rewatched it for a film class, and I think that was the film that had me decide, I want to be involved in film. I want to be a screenwriter. And it's a film that has a lot of history with me, personally. And it's also its 70th anniversary. I love this movie in and out, but what are your general thoughts on the movie? What has been your experience with it?
This movie's great. I only saw this a few years ago. For the first time, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago is when I first saw it. I sometimes struggle with old movies. I know other people say it's it just looks weird.
Yeah.
My struggle has been usually a lot of these old movies tend to influence the more modern movies. So it's when I see modern movies and I go back to the old ones, it's for me, it's not fresh anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's okay, I've seen that done. This movie did not, I did not have that feeling. It was still great when I watched it. From the opening scene, actually. The
opening scene is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about it a lot, just how it reveals so much information, and this is the world that you're going to be stuck in for the rest of the movie. For 1954,
let's go.
Yes, I think that the camera work that they do at the opening, it doesn't feel like films that were of that time. And I mean, Hitchcock, he was an innovator.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he's regarded, even as today, many people consider him the greatest director of all time.
I think he's definitely on my Mount Rushmore. I don't know, who's your Mount Rushmore for anyone that's pre 2000s that comes to mind for directors?
Hitchcock is there. Probably Spielberg. Scorsese. I feel the fourth one is always hard because then you're who do you leave off?
Yeah.
Yeah, those three for sure.
I was thinking Kubrick, if you throw
Yeah.
It's not a very traditional mystery. We've got more of a situation where it's did a murder occur versus who done it. Hollywood was pretty heavy on big star-studded mystery casts. So it would be all of the Agatha Christie adaptations. So I think that this one was pretty unique for its time. But what do you make of the mystery aspect of this film?
When it comes to the mystery, I admire the simplicity of it, because 100% of the movie takes place in Jeffries' apartment, where he literally can't move around because he's in a wheelchair. He's just looking around, and then what you said, where it asks 2 questions. The first one is, did a murder happen? And he's kind of being judgmental, and that is who he is. I mean, he assumes that Miss Torso is sleeping around a lot.
Yeah.
Because of the way she looks and the men that she has over it, and then at the end realizes that no, she does have an actual relationship
with that short little soldier guy.
Yeah. It's the other men they are not romantic partners to her. Miss Lonely Heart, he's a super judgmental character, so it is kind of did something actually happen, or is he making judgments off people?
Right.
So that is the question mark, and then it turns into, okay, yes, it did happen. How is he going to convince the other characters? And then finally, it's how are we going to expose him? Yeah, different structure than usual whodunits. It's always big cast, somebody dies, and then it's who did it? Instead of this time, it's like we know who did it, but we don't know if it happened. And then once we find out, yes, it did happen, how are we going to prove it?
I also love how the mystery is set up in the movie, because it's not even a scene that's like maybe 1 or 2 minutes long, and it's all kind of done like he's like stuck in this like sleepy haze, and he hears a noise, he looks out the window a bit, but he's not really like paying attention. And then the next morning, it's like, okay, one thing doesn't seem off across the street. And that's kind of what sets him like spiraling. What I think the film really does well with the character aspect is we sit with Jeffrey so long, we kind of feel just as confined as he does. And we're confined, and the only difference is that the audience has a little bit more information than him.
But do they have more information than him? Because don't we just see everything through his telescope? Like, literally through his lens?
There's one thing that we do not see, which is him leaving with another woman.
Okay.
Which I believe is his sister, the Thorwald's sister, who pretends to be his wife. They leave the apartment. So we get a bit more information where it's like, okay, we know he left with someone. We don't know if it was her or not, but he doesn't find that out until later in the film. One thing that you said that reminds me of like a big aspect of this film, which I wanted to discuss, is feminism. Like, this movie, I think there are some people in the camp that maybe this movie is a bit like sexist, but there's other people that in this movie that treat this movie kind of like it's a bit ahead of its time, and it was trying to show like female characters in a different way. Like, to your point, Jeffrey's set is a bit judgmental of especially Miss Lonely Heart, Miss Torso, and they kind of seem like they're going in one direction, but by the end of the film, they've changed as people, or changed in his mind.
Yeah.
The major character that he interacts with, of course, is Lisa, who he's got this situationship with her.
Yeah.
Which how do you not like put a ring on the finger of Grace Kelly? I don't know what's wrong with you, Jeffries. That's what you want to do.
Well, I've heard a theory that he's gay.
Where does that theory come from?
But do you remember? This is literally in class. Ben, our teacher, was saying, "Hey, he might be."
Yes, but also he was saying that about like the characters in Written on the Wind.
Yeah. Which,
okay, that one I think is more plausible. This one I'm like, I don't know. Jeffries is, well, remember, he's a war veteran. Yeah. He's like still, and he was just a photographer in the war. He was like pretty messed up after that. So I think his mindset was all like, oh, I'm not ready for you to enter my life because I still feel scared from all of those moments. What I really like about the relationship is that it does feel very realistic. Like, really... Oh, wait. We've got to talk about the meme, though. Like...
What meme?
The meme that circulates around this movie is always, like the one of, like, the couple in bed, and then she's like, please, babe, I'm like, please sleep with me. And he's like, there must have been a murder. That's what he's thinking. I think that meme actually, like, does kind of... is accurate to the movie.
Kind of, yeah, because she definitely is trying to... I mean, she's doing a lot to get his attention.
Right.
But he's more interested in looking out of the window.
But back to the point of feminism, like, I think that Grace Kelly's character is just, like, really good in her role because she gets involved directly. And despite how much Jeffries is like, no, don't go. Because he's been trying the whole film to kind of protect her. Like, he doesn't want to let her in his life because he's so scared. And she does this all on her own because she knows she can do it on her own. She even stands up to his detective friend, explaining very clearly, like, what a woman would do, what a woman wouldn't do. And it is a little bit stereotypical for its time.
Yeah.
Which I can understand that being like the thing where it's like, oh, it tried to be feminist, but it kind of like has those stereotypes in there.
It's feminist for 1954, I guess.
Yeah. Where it's like people are definitely, like, I think, and it's dangerous to say that Hitchcock himself would be like this really like hoorah, like feminist male director, given his history with like Tippi Hedren on The Birds, I think. Well, so Tippi Hedren was the lead of The Birds, and she went on record to talk about her negative experience on the set, how like Hitchcock would like kind of like put her in a room with a bunch of birds and didn't tell her that was going to happen. And she just felt like she was like just generally mistreated on set, like talked down to. What the film strives to be at the end of the day is something feminist. Does it necessarily do all of those things right? No. But I do think that what it does get right is strong and works for the movie and for the time period. And also I like Grace Kelly a lot. I think she's a great actress.
Yeah, she was great in the movie as well. I think she's probably... Yeah, I think I actually liked her a lot more than the actual lead.
Jimmy Stewart's great. He I think in this role, he's probably a bit more subdued due to being in a cast. But I think he makes it work.
No, I mean, and he does have a natural likableness to him, which Jeffries is not a likable character. So they cast a likable guy to play an unlikable character, which I think was, I feel like, intentional. Yeah. I mean, obviously at the time he was probably the biggest star, or one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. But still, if your protagonist is going to be unlikable, it's always a good idea to cast a character or an actor who can bring the character some kind of charisma and will be likable. And
he's like a little bit different than their typical Hitchcock protagonist guys. They're a bit more like average Joe, sometimes sarcastic, funny. He is definitely like sarcastic, but he roasts people. He's a mean guy. And you know, Thelma Ritter is the nurse.
Yeah,
she is
she's great.
She is so funny. Every single line. Just curious, who is your favorite? I want to call it like a vignette almost. It feels like every time we see these characters, they've got their own little story going on.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite, or which one is your favorite?
I kind of like Miss Lonely Heart.
It's a really strong beat.
I don't know why. It's just I do, and I kind of wish we found out her name. But obviously that was the point. You're not going to find out any of these names, and it is. Yeah, it's a little. Again, going back to him being judgmental. Miss Lonely Heart, Miss Torso. He is not a nice guy.
He just like has the worst names. I forget what I think he calls like the woman that like is always doing weird art projects. I forget what her name was, but she's like really funny. My favorite is the newlywed couple.
Oh yes.
Who move in and like she's like, Harry.
What are some things that didn't work for you?
There is one. If there's anything that I want to say I don't like about my favorite movie, it is the title name drop. Like, so there's a moment where Grace Kelly's character Lisa, she's like, "I'm not much for Rear Window ethics." And I'm like, that is so corny.
It was a little forced, but. I don't know. That's another thing. That's another quality of old movies. They they have very Hollywood dialogue.
Yeah.
You know, it's been toned down a little bit as time has gone by, especially in dramas. That's one of those things where I can chalk it up to its time. Honestly, for me, there's very little that doesn't work in this movie. I would say I think calling a character Miss Torso definitely is You're objectifying the character. It is one thing, though. It was the 1950s. Not necessarily, but that does not necessarily excuse it. It's just kind of adding that context. Let's say I was a studio executive and this script were to be on my desk and I'm greenlighting it. I would say, okay, you can't call her Miss Torso. Call her the dancer or whatever, because I think that's what she does.
Yeah.
Right? She's a ballerina? Or
She's definitely like a professional dancer of some kind.
Okay, yeah. So you call her the dancer. You don't call her Miss Torts, but that's really my big one.
But just a counterpoint, you know, my thing is like the whole film is about perspective.
Yeah.
And, you know, as we've established, Jeffries is not the nicest guy. One beat that stands out is when Lisa's looking over at her window and he's like, oh, you know, that's what she does. And she's like, I think she's juggling wolves. And then he like takes a minute to realize like the error of his ways and how he's been judging people, not even just this murder. Like, sure, it's good to catch a murder and try to report it, but it's not so good to judge the other people around you.
Yep.
And I think that by the end of the movie, you know, you can see the change in him. And he got another leg broken, so it's worth.
I guess I can spoil next week's episode, but we're planning to talk about the Batman very soon. That opening shot of the Riddler, it's Rear Window.
It's basically Rear Window. There's so many like great homages. All right, so let's move on to standout scenes.
All right.
What would be yours?
I know we were just making fun of the scene, but it is when Thornwall goes into Jeffries' home. Yes, it is a little silly. Thornwall is walking at a snail's pace, and I don't believe that a camera flash would stun him for that long. That said, it is still full of a ton of tension, because you have your main character who is in a cast. He literally cannot escape, and the best thing he can do is try to hold him off for as long as possible until someone else comes to help him.
Yeah, even the moments leading up to before he gets inside, it's so tense.
Yeah.
You hear like everything.
Mm-hmm.
My standout scene has got to be Lisa's introduction.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because a lot of the best moments and my favorite moments in the film do take place on the outside, where we're looking at what's going on with the investigation. I also love that scene where he's like smoking in the dark and you see the little cigarette lighting up. That hits so hard. But I love the scene where Lisa is introduced because it's kind of like movie magic to me. Also, like their kiss scene, it's like the frame rate slowed down. Mm-hmm. To me, it's just like the best kiss scene in like movies ever. And then she does this really silly little introduction where she's like, Lisa, like with the lamp and everything. I think it's just a perfect way to introduce your character. And if you're a writer and you're trying to figure out like, how do I introduce my supporting characters, look towards Rear Window. I think that it does a great job of introducing all of its supporting cast.
Again, because Kevin, you said you were such a big fan, I googled some trivia questions. Now, it's been a minute since I watched the film, so I can't tell if these are easy or difficult.
Okay.
So we're just going to go for it.
Are we going against each other? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the loser has to... I don't want to make that.
Put her leg in a cast for...
Yeah.
I mean, we can get I'm down for a Batman rematch next week. Batman trivia.
Yeah.
Alrighty, ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
How much does the dress that Lisa's wearing in her first scene cost?
Oh, I just watched that scene.
It's either $5,000, $500, $800, or $1,100.
I'll go with that one.
Yeah, that one's so specific. I feel like it has to be that.
Yeah, it's that. But I feel like you guys, like that was like process of elimination.
Yeah.
In which apartment does Hitchcock make his cameo appearance?
Oh. That's in the musician's apartment.
Yeah.
He's in the scene, he's near the piano, and he turns around, he's like playing, he's like that.
Okay, I mean, this one I think is easy. Who employs Stella?
Jeffries.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he pays her privately, but like, what's her job?
Oh, well, she's his
The
nurse.
Yeah, or like a caretaker thing.
It says here that the insurance company employs Stella.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
that's interesting. Is that like a... I guess that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
From where does Lisa order dinner for herself and Jeff?
Oh. I mean, I know what they make. She gets a lobster. I don't know, like some Italian restaurant named like Lissandro's or something.
It just says the 21.
Oh, okay.
Okay. What does Stella claim she should have been instead of the insurance company nurse?
The prison?
It's a fortune teller.
Oh, okay.
I remember her saying that.
I guess with your one answer, Kevin, you win this.
Well, we kind of do 1100 by process of elimination. Alright.
Alrighty, let's move on to your ratings.
Alright.
As a reminder, for our ratings, we use the script coverage scale of pass, consider, and recommend. Pass means we didn't really like the movie, consider means we think it's pretty decent, and recommend means we think it's great. As a reminder, this is not an actual recommendation, it's just a score. Yeah. How would you score Rear Window?
Well, I would give it a strong recommend. I think that this movie is just amazing. I've always loved this movie. It's gonna be a while before it's like unseated as my favorite. I've definitely seen a lot of films that I love, but none have really topped Rear Window. And I think that part of why I love it is I love the ethical dilemma. I love the setting. I love the filmmaking aspect. I think it's so creative. I think it's funny and sad and heartwarming at the same time. It manages to do so much.
It is going to be a strong recommend for me also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. Again, there's a reason why this movie is taught in film schools.
Yeah.
So every week we like to offer a recommendation that is of something that is similar to the movie that we just covered. So what would you recommend for everyone?
I'm going to recommend a film called Blowout by Brian De Palma. I can't remember the year or if it's on streaming right now, but the film is about a main character named who's played by John Travolta, who is a sound technician, and kind of like in Rear Window where Jeffries thinks he sees a murder, John Travolta's character thinks he's heard a murder while he was walking in a public place using his sound equipment. It's more of an intense thriller, and it kind of goes around like different places. He has a very similar love interest. Brian De Palma is kind of known for remaking Rear Window type movies. He's got a film called Sisters, which has a Rear Window murder, and Body Double, which also has a Rear Window style murder. But the reason I picked Blowout is because I think it's the coolest of them and does the murder mystery aspect, I think, in a more interesting way.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie, but yeah, I should check it out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna recommend Panic Room by David Fincher. The reason is it's, they both have elements of suspense to it, and I don't think Panic Room is like super similar to Rear Window, other than genre wise. I do think that Hitchcock is known as the master of suspense and thrillers and all that, and I think in terms of modern day, when we talk about who's the best director at making suspenseful thrillers, usually a common answer that gets thrown out is David Fincher.
Yeah.
And I think that when we talk about influence, Fincher was 100% influenced by Hitchcock. And I think if there was no Hitchcock, there's no Fincher. The reason I'm recommending Panic Room specifically is because I think this is a movie that, like Rear Window, does take place in one home. It's about Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart who move into a new home. And there are people who break in trying to steal some money, but they're also dangerous, so they lock themselves in the panic room to try and keep themselves safe. Yeah, no, but really fun, really suspenseful movie.
I've seen Panic Room. It's been a long time because I think I saw it when I was a little young. But I remember liking it. I just don't remember the details other than Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart being in it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really funny also.
In what way?
There's just a lot of just little bits of humor. I think Jared Leto's character, there's a moment where when he breaks into the home, he wasn't expecting he was expecting it to be empty, and he was like, no, it should have been empty for 2 weeks. It's been 10 days. And Forrest Whitaker looks at him and it's like, 2 weeks is 14 days, idiot. Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. I should rewatch that movie.
It's a lot of fun.
What else have you guys been watching?
So we both actually saw Alien Romulus.
Yeah.
we considered doing it doing an episode on that, and then we decided not to because we weren't sure if we'd be able to watch it, and then we ended up watching it.
And that said, given that we watched it, I mean, I will say I thought it was okay. I liked the effects. I thought that they did a lot of gnarly stuff, which, I mean, I like that. I like when horror is gross and trying to do crazy stuff, but I feel like this one really wanted to, like... I feel like it was more focused on doing that than it was caring about its characters, and in my opinion, the story and the characters really fall flat. Like, there's nothing going on there.
I agree. I think there was a lot. I think I might have ended up liking it more than you, but it was a lot of fun. But since we both said the same thing, let's say another thing.
Sure. Well, recently... Oh, I rewatched a film called A Silent Voice, which is about she's a mute girl, who... and there's this boy who is her bully, and when they were younger, he bullied her a lot, and flash forward to the future, we realize that he is now the person that's on the outside being bullied. No one likes him, and he reaches out to her when they reunite to see if they can spark a friendship again. It's a really cute anime, and I believe it's on Netflix.
I actually watched Manjuman Boys. It's the Malayalam movie. Thought it was pretty good. I think it could have been a half hour shorter, in my opinion. I think that would have made it a lot better, but still good. And that's it for this episode of Pages Pixels. I'm Rohan.
And I'm Kevin. Stay tuned next week. We'll have another episode for you. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you.